Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Arundel Human Relations Commission. My name is Eugene Peterson. I'm the interim chair of the commission, and the commission was established through and has been codified through charter amendment passed in 2020. And before that, we were also given the charge by the county council to investigate and eliminate housing discrimination in Anne Arundel County following complaints that may be lodged, and investigate those and resolve them. And we also are charged with helping to eliminate discrimination in Anne Arundel County so it can become the best place for all. I'd like to begin the meeting and take a roll call of commissioners. I see Commissioner Clapsaddle. Could you say you're present?
Present.
Thank you, Commissioner Clapsaddle. Commissioner, are there any other commissioners on at this point in time?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Peterson, do you want to hold on for maybe 5 minutes and let some more people trickle in?
Yes.
So what have you been up to, Eugene? How's life treating you?
Good. I had my 2 vaccines, and by Pfizer, and by this Friday, I will have the 2-week period. So
Ooh.
I'll be able to follow some of the relaxed restrictions, and looking forward to it. And I'm hoping that we can have a barbecue in our cul-de-sac this 4th of July, and I'm very hopeful that can happen. I just saw Governor Hogan on CNN, and he was saying that the state's going to open up the vaccination process, I think for 60 and above, or he says the vaccination process for all by July 1.
Wow.
So he said they're doing 50,000 vaccinations in the state now, but they have the capacity to do 100,000. So it all depends on the vaccine that's available. And so he explained how they're not opening up more reservation slots next week because they're not getting any more vaccine until the following week, he said, when it should really open up.
Cool.
So I guess they're gonna use the stock they have. So that's a good sign.
It's amazing, really, how quickly this has happened, given how long all vaccines usually take. And it's just incredible that we're so far ahead.
I agree.
So I get my second one on Sunday. So I'm all excited. It's like freedom, isn't it? It's free at last.
Yes. Yeah, and I was lucky. I didn't have many side effects. Sore arm. I think the first shot, I got a little sore in joints, but other than that, I've been fine.
I just got a bit tired with the first one. I felt tired.
Yeah, I got tired. Yeah, I got tired.
And a sore arm, of course, but nothing other than that.
Too.
Yeah.
Gene?
Yes.
May I, while we're waiting on a quorum,
sir.
May I inquire of Madam Ridgway about the issue that was brought up at our last meeting about how and under what circumstances are we as a commission, can we support legislation? And you said you were going to look into that.
I did. Would you like me to answer that now, Eugene?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, should we wait?
You don't need to, but as long as you have that, that's great.
I do.
All right, that's cool. Thank you. And I don't know Pamela Brown.
Oh, sorry. I should have introduced myself. I'm Pam Brown with the Partnership for Children, Youth and Families. We are part of county government, but what's called a quasi-county agency.
That's wonderful. And I love your accent.
Thank you very much.
Is that British?
It is indeed.
Thank you.
I'm from Yorkshire.
I love that. My goddaughters live just outside a little village called Ickham.
Oh,
It's a tiny little place.
they still exist. Whenever, and I haven't been home for a year, obviously, because of COVID, but whenever I go back, I just think about how unchanging it is. You know, that still those little villages exist, the thatched cottages still exist. You know, I was born very close to York. And when you go to York, it's just, I mean, the architecture is so wonderful, tracing it back, you know, right through the 5th century, and then all the gorgeous Tudor stuff and the shambles and all the way up to Victorian. I think it never changes. That's a nice thing about it. It never changes. I think we did a good job with the green belt in England. So although the cities have grown and changed, the countryside has been well protected. Well, it seems a bit thin on the ground, guys. I thought that these were pretty robust meetings. Is it the weather?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused too, because not only did I send out the announcement, but I sent a reminder out. And you got the reminder, didn't you, Joe?
I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah, so if you got it, everybody else did.
Well,
Well.
Camille Carter is here.
So here's another. Maybe it's just a slow starting meeting.
It is very slow. It normally is not.
I apologize for my tardiness. I'm just coming out of practice.
Oh.
That's fine. What practice is that?
I play varsity volleyball for my school.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Are you a striker?
I am.
All right. That's great. Glad that you're joining us, Camille.
I'm so glad to be here.
Fantastic. We're waiting for some of our voting members to show up, but we're happy to have a student member. And I served on the school board for 10 years, so I'm in favor of voting student members because they add to the discussion on the body, and I found them to be really very astute about their votes.
I'd agree with you. I think that we should have students on almost any position we can because we bring such a perspective, especially since we're the ones that are in these schools experiencing what's going on. So I definitely think students should be wherever we can fit students in.
Right. And we promise that we will take your thoughts and considerations into account with everything that we do.
Thank you for that.
Not a problem. Now, which high school do you go to?
I go to North County High School, and I went to Lindale Middle School before that.
Oh, North County. All right. Good friend of mine was a graduate of North County. Ned Carey, he's a state delegate.
We produce some great people, don't we?
Yes, yes, indeed. I didn't get any other than Mary Dedoni's excused absence. I don't have any other excused absences either, for the record. Do we have anybody else joining us?
Pastor Gay joined. So we've got 11 now. There's 11 participants.
Okay.
Hi, Eugene. This is Pastor Gay. I
Yes.
wanted to say that it was a challenge as far as getting on because in your email, the passcode doesn't work.
Oh.
So maybe that's the challenge people are having. So I called in, but all the lines are muted. So I wasn't able to let you know what was going on.
Yeah, I used hi.
Hi.
Did you have you had trouble getting on? Yeah.
Yeah, the passcode was incorrect, or it wouldn't allow me to get on with the passcode that was sent in the email. I just sent Megan a message, and she sent me a link to get in.
Okay. Good to have you with us.
It's great to be here.
I wonder if the link should get sent out again to all the commissioners in case everybody's having problems.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Megan, can you send the link out again?
Yes, I'm
everybody?
already on it.
Thank you. I'll have to brush up on my tech skills here.
I just wanted to indicate this is Mark Apter. I've been here for a few minutes. If nobody,
Right.
Thanks.
Okay, Mark, good to have you with us. Megan's sending out a link so that if you called in by phone, right? Or are you on video, Mark?
Mark is on video. He did not.
Okay. Good. So we now have.
Yes, Mark is on video.
All right, Mark. Is Miss Hatcher on? Is she muted?
Good evening, everyone. I am on.
Okay,
Hello.
great. Okay, we have 5 now. Don't have a quorum yet. The quorum is it 7? Joelle, what the quorum is?
So Eugene, we do have 12 participants.
Yeah, I know, but we're talking about commissioners, so we can have a formal meeting.
The total number of commissioners?
Pardon?
The total number, half plus 1.
Okay. So we're down 2.
2, 3.
And we've got 4 on now. We need 1 more then, right? Okay, I see the county executives on.
Hey, Gene.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Stuart, good to see you.
Good to be here.
We had a little technical difficulty. We sent out incomplete passcode. That's why this is taking so long. Mr. County Executive, we don't want to take a lot of your time. We know you're busy.
I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. What's everybody's feeling? Would you want to wait till we get 1 more commissioner, or shall we just start the meeting? And then we'll make it formal when we get the 5th commissioner. Waiting for a little guidance here.
I think the only limitation you have is if is voting on anything without the quorum. But
That's correct.
You could probably,
Yeah, we probably get going. Okay, I agree. So we've gone through the roll call. We're still waiting 1 more commissioner so we can get official if we want to vote on anything. I'll start with roster announcements. Want to announce the departure of our chairman, Mr. Roberto Veloso, for personal reasons. I have been designated and stepped in as interim chair. And I want to introduce our student commissioner, Camille Carter. Camille, welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you. So my name is Camille Carter. I'm a senior. I go to North County High School. I'm in the STEM and AVID program. And right now I serve on the Chesapeake Region Associated Student Council class, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, as the equity officer. I also work with Let's Talk Justice, AACPS, and I'm a social media liaison / communication specialist for them. And I'm just super excited to be here and hear what you guys have to say, and super excited that you guys even have a position for students to be able to share their input on what's going on within the county.
Well, we're super excited to have you. And as I said earlier, we will value your input. And as I said, I served on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education for 10 years, and we had a voting member. So I'm a strong proponent of student voting members. Just thought I'd lay that out there, although we have a non-voting member, and that's fine. I'd like to announce an excused absence for our secretary, Mary Dedoni, and she sent out around 5 o'clock the minutes from our February 11th meeting, which wasn't a formal meeting of the commission. We didn't have a full commission meeting. It was a special meeting with the chief, a new chief of police, Chief Aboud, and we can wait until April and pass on those minutes, or those minutes were simply to list the people that were on the call, list the a brief note presentation from Chief Aboud, and then a link to the meeting. So that's all there is on that. So if nobody has any problems, I'll ask for consensus to send those to Joelle and have them posted. And then Mary wasn't able to do the minutes of the 22nd. And so we will defer the minutes of our formal meeting, February 22nd, and for review and approval in April. So is everybody okay with me just sending the brief February 11th special meeting notes to Joelle to have them posted? Is there any opposition to that? Okay, hearing none, we will take that action. That's by consensus. Now I want to move to the presentation from our county executive, Stuart Pittman, in discussion of our annual report, which I know he has copiously reviewed. Mr. County Executive.
Thanks, Eugene, and thanks for stepping up to help out when Roberto needed to step down. And thanks to Roberto for his service. Actually, Dr. Kay Bodgester-Brown, our chief of staff, and I met with Roberto 10 days, 2 weeks ago. I can't remember what day it was. Time flies, but we did it after having reviewed your annual report and talked to each other about your annual report. Then we wanted to get his input, since we knew he wouldn't be here, on some of it and his thoughts before he left the commission. And so, I mean, I felt strongly that we needed to come back and speak directly to the commission about your requests, because they were pretty specific ones. And we want to make sure that we keep them in mind as we move forward and get back to you on them. But in general, I think one of the challenges that we've had since we reconstituted this commission is in our enthusiasm to try to address issues of racism and hate bias and diversity in county government, and the lens of racial justice through which we want to look at policy, is that we've got a lot of people working on it in a lot of different directions. And it's sort of been this explosion of activity that hasn't been very, very well coordinated. And so when Kay came in, and I apologize for Kay not being here, she planned to be here as well, but isn't feeling well tonight, so we give her a break. But when she came in as chief of staff, she said, you know, we need one person at the top. Most counties have this, a director of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so we got the county council to approve that position, and we did it between budgets. I think that was probably a good time to do it, and got unanimous support for it. I think it was unanimous. We've got applications. At first it looked like it was kind of scarce, but now, but then there was an explosion of applications, and we've got some really good ones, I understand, and interviews will be starting soon. So we hope to have that person on board soon, before the end of the fiscal year, for sure, in the next couple of months. So that then begs the question of what is that person's role in relation to the job that was, we'll call it Alana's job, which was the compliance position, but broadened under her because nobody was doing a lot of the other work. And how does that overlap with all the requests that you've made and all the specifics that you've had here? So the first one, Fund the Human Relations Commission with a director was, and an administrative person, was the one that's the biggest ask, of course. And so we're not saying no, but we are saying let's get the new replacement for Alana hired, as well as the new EDI position, as well as we have a new person who's doing boards and commissions, Megan, who I think you guys have met. Right now, interim, we're really lucky to have Joelle Ridgway doing the cases that are coming forward, and she'll report on those. But I think we're gonna have a better sense after we get those positions filled of where we stand, and you'll have a better sense too. And I hope that we'll end the year with a better sense of what the Human Relations Commission's job is in relation to all these other efforts. And then be able to answer the question about whether you need staffing in addition to these other positions, or whether these other positions are going to be able to staff you adequately and provide what you need to get the work done that you need. So that was the first one. The second one was enacting county law requiring equity analysis prior to enacting new legislation or policies. And so that's going to be one of the first things that the new EDI person is going to have on his or her plate is figuring out how to do that assessment of policy. I also want that assessment of every budget item to be done. And we have two areas where we want that assessment to be done. We want it to be done on racial equity, and we want it to be done on health. And so within the Department of Health, we have our Office of Health Equity and Racial Justice, and that position hasn't been filled. They thought they had two candidates, and neither of them took the job, and so they're having to start over again there to try to fill that position. They have the work being done, and they have the office open, but without the director position. So when we get the EDI position, that position gets filled, all these positions get filled, then we have to have them do an assessment of how this is going to work, whether it's going to be notes that get written with each piece of legislation that on everything, or whether just some of them are going to be assessed through this lens. We want to make sure that it's not just somebody in our office is going to think about this stuff as we do our budget and as we write legislation, because we want to make sure that the next county executive and the one after that and the one after that also do it and are forced to do it. So I think that's what you're getting at, and we want to do it, but we're going to wait until we have these positions filled to put together the recommendation, and if it's legislation or if it's going to be done through some other way. I hope it's a bill that requires it, but we want to be able to show exactly what it means to do it and start doing it before we mandate it in law. The third one is the implement a countywide workforce diversity policy like Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I don't know if we have anybody from the school system here, but I want to do better than the school system. So I think, again, I hate to keep putting these things off till we get the EDI position filled, but that's one of the things we want the EDI person to do is what are we not doing to create diversity, and what does it mean to have a policy, and how does that policy actually get enforced? I mean, there's no question that there's a mandate with every department, and that we have better data to look at, and that we have to have data for every department to look at and make it public. But again, assessing whether or not we got to give that person the opportunity to make policy recommendations. So that's the answer on that one right now. the number 4 is implement a minority and small business set-asides policy. So we had been told, no, we're doing great without it. It's just not the direction that Arundel County needs to go. But we've decided that we do need to move in this direction. So there's the first step in doing that, we're told, is to get a consultant to do a disparity study of our contracts now. And that's, I'm told, going to be done within like next week. We'll have the results of that, is what I was told just before I got on. So we'll get that to you, that disparity study. And then we already have people working on putting together the plan for the set-aside program, consistent with what the state does. So we're moving forward on that. Number 5, create commission against hate bias or hate violence by executive order. So we thought about that, and we've been creating a lot of new boards and commissions lately. We're well above 40 right now. What I've noted is that we've also done some interagency task forces. And so through the Department of Health, we've recently done the opioid intervention interagency task force, and we've done the gun violence interagency task force. So we are thinking more along the lines of that, and potentially through the health department, since the Office of Racial Equity is Health Equity and Racial Justice is an appropriate place to house this. At the same time, though, we have to keep putting the data out. You probably might have read in the paper that Open Arundel put the data out that the state was providing in a way that is a lot easier for people to look at and to understand. And we have to continue the work. You all started the work in a really powerful way when you did the forum at the community college right before the pandemic started, with a plan to follow up with a lot of community meetings. And with the pandemic, the community meetings couldn't happen, obviously. We did a whole lot of work right at that point internally in county government with the groundwater training program. I think I've been to 3 or 4 different trainings myself, and through the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families, through the libraries, we've been contracting to do these trainings, and that's been really effective. But we do have to take it back out into the communities the way you originally planned as things open up post-pandemic. And then provide support. Okay, basically a survey was number 6, and we do want to do that. We're going to have the EDI position plan that to make sure that it's the right survey, and we know how that could go wrong, so that's underway as well. And I think that is the 6 things that the 6 major things that were on the list, except, oh wait, I know I missed one. I missed a very important one, which must have been the second one. Where was? Okay, yeah, within the second one, the opportunity gap. And I brought, we have Jennifer Purcell and Dr. Brown, Dr. Purcell and Dr. Brown, who were tasked with working with the school system on implementation of the Opportunity Gap Commission recommendations, the joint commission that was the county and the school system. And they have been quietly working with a team, but working very hard to come up with a plan. There's an executive order that will be happening very soon, and I'm going to let them brief you on where that stands right now. Because this is of all the recommendations, of almost everything that we're doing, I feel like this is the most important thing, because it gets at the way we're doing it now, unlike the way it was done before. It requires local government, community, and the school system all to address the issues, because we know that they don't just happen in the school system. And that's not a way of just letting the school system off the hook. That's a way of acknowledging that we have a responsibility to reduce poverty, childhood poverty, particularly in our communities, and all the trauma that goes along with that, and all the conditions that cause that and go along with that. And I just have to say, before I turn it over to them, I know I'm talking too much, but I have to say that we should be really, really, really excited about the fact that the bill that Congress passed just, I guess, last week, that the economists project that it will reduce childhood poverty by 50%. And so if that's true, we have an opportunity in this county to make an incredible amount of progress for our kids, and for the future. So Pam and Jennifer, why don't you brief them on what you've done?
I'm going to start. I'm just going to give you a quick process and timeline update, and then Dr. Brown's going to talk a little bit more about what we're really trying to achieve. With Dr. Dodoni being part of the joint initiative from the beginning, I'm really hoping that the commission's familiar with the report, and this is the report that came out on November 30th, as well as the reasons behind the initiative. I was just going to share our progress since November 30th, but if you need more detail, Dr. Brown and I can certainly stay as long as you would like for questions and answers. But since then, we've made presentations to both the Board of Education and the County Council. We wanted to ask for their formal support of the initiative. We were successful, so the board approved a motion to support the initiative on January 20th, and the County Council actually approved a resolution just this past Monday. So we're very excited about that. In the meantime, though, we've been working to create a joint commission on the opportunity gap, and that commission would be fulfilling the responsibilities that are laid out in priority recommendation number 1. So actually, boss, it looks like we are adding another commission to our already number of 40. So, but this group is really going to dig in, prioritize the recommendations, review our work, and this is the group that's going to hold us accountable. So the county executive already mentioned an executive order that's forthcoming, hopefully in a week or two. We're going to do a formal announcement, but I'll just give you a little sneak peek of how it'll be structured. It'll be a commission of 15 voting members. 7 individuals coming from the community, 5 being county and school representatives, and those 5 have experience in Title I schools, nursing, social work, and early childhood education. And now you're probably thinking, Jennifer, that doesn't add up. You said 15 and 7 and 5 is 12. But the way we've got this structured is that the 12 will be appointed by the county executive and the superintendent, but those final 3 are going to be selected by the 12 once they're seated. We'll have a total of 15. Our original timeline, as we presented it to the Board of Ed and County Council, was targeted to have a first meeting July of 2021, but we are about a month ahead of schedule. And personally, I'm aiming to begin well before then. So I think that would be great. And finally, we've got these other 3 recommendations. I focused a lot on this first priority recommendation. We have looked at numbers 2, 3, and 4 internally. We have been taking some steps, and there are some programs that are already going that do fit within these. But honestly, we want that commission to be the true driving force behind this and not only help us implement, make these implementation decisions, but also then articulate how to best measure what we're trying to achieve. So they are going to play a large role in making this stuff happen. And so Pam, you're going to talk more about what we're looking to achieve.
So I think what's wonderful tonight, Eugene, is that I had to think about 12 years ago when you and I were stuck in a dusty room somewhere up in Glen Burnie with Carlisa, trying to figure out what we were going to do about achievement. And it was a long and tortuous process. And I think in the end, we all got to the point where we thought we could not move the stone any further up the hill. And you all know I've been around a while. So for me, the progress that has been made over the last 2 years is extraordinary. It's quite extraordinary. I sit in meetings every day and I can't believe the sorts of conversations that are happening inside county government. The Opportunity Gap Task Force is just really a discrete piece of all of the things we're talking about. But I agree with the county executive in a sense. It's one of the most important because all of the issues that we see for youths and families start very, very early. Many of them start in pregnancy and prenatal care, move on to low birth weight. And these are all related to the disparities that are attached to systemic racism. So when we think of the opportunity gap, we're really starting before the trouble starts, which is where I've always wanted to be in the work. I've always wanted to be at the start, so that somehow or other we could set the priorities right for new generations. And so the work of the opportunity gap, I think, is that. It's a real recognition that whereas like all systems, the school system has issues related to systemic racism, they cannot fix the opportunity gap. And Eugene, you and I think, talked about this many years ago. They can't fix it on their own because it starts way before the children walk through the door, and because we all play a role in it. We all play a role as individuals. We all play a role in the systems that we work in. The county plays a role and the community plays a role. And I think Jen's leadership, along with the other 4 women we've worked with on this at the school system, it's really helped to solidify the notion that this is work for everybody. And that's really why we asked for an independent commission. We didn't really want the commission to live inside the school system. We wanted it to be by executive order, but we wanted all 3 bodies to do the appointments to the commission. So I think that we've made a great start. I feel more positive about addressing the opportunity gap now than I have done in probably 25 years. And it's very exciting work. The very first thing we had to do was getting the commission seated. And we really want to make sure that we hear the voices of people with lived experience of what has happened in this county and what continues to happen in this county, as well as some of the professionals and community members and county people that are going to be appointed. So we've really worked hard on the appointment, on the slots of the appointment process, to make sure that we hear from those who have lived and walked through this stuff. So we're really right at the beginning. I mean, it's been a year in the making, and a pandemic year at that. And I'll finish by saying, I think the county executive is modest about what has been happening in the county. I serve on a group with Kay Bodgers-Brown related to how we can strategically plan for all of the issues related to systemic racism inside the county. Health equity is part of that. There are many things part of that. And although hiring during a pandemic is a nightmare, and it is holding things up in some senses, there is a whole load of planning and strategic work going on. It's all, unfortunately, it takes a long time. It took us hundreds of years to get here. This county was a sleepy and reasonably conservative place for many, many years. And we are making startling progress. I'm sure, County Executive, there are times when you feel like we are stopped still, and I feel your impatience. But I do believe that there's extraordinary progress to be made. The fact that the Human Relations Commission is back and active, that you will play a part, just like me, that's an exciting thing for the county. So I'll stop there. I've gone way off the opportunity gap. I'm worse than you, County Executive. I've just gone on and on and on. But I will say that I'm very cheered by the work of the opportunity gap, and the fact that we've got this far is extraordinary. And that the school system is still with us, extraordinary. So thank you, everybody.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Okay, I'm not hearing any, and I would let everybody know that Commissioner Khalid Salat has joined us. So we now have a quorum if we want to vote on any measures. I would just like to raise a couple of issues myself. Number one, I remember when they did Carl Snowden had a big emphasis on getting people to be responsible in the housing projects. And they came up with a program, a phlebotomy program. And it was great. They trained all these people, and then everybody figured out people are living in Annapolis here. The jobs are in Glen Burnie. We don't have a transportation system infrastructure to make this happen. So will changing the opportunity gap mean addressing issues like infrastructure that we don't have to get people moved to where the jobs are, because you can't have a future if you don't have a job.
So I always consider all of those things as part of the social determinants of what happens to children and families. Of course, I'm on the Transportation Commission now, and I know that we all understand that unless we think of ways to solve issues related to transportation, we can't solve some of these issues. They will not be solved. The same with affordable housing, the same with a lot of the childcare, the things that act as barriers for children and families. So yes, I think it's all part and parcel now. The work of the opportunity gap, I think, is to point things out for a start off, to act as a place of discussion, act as a place where the community comes together, where the community college talks to the transportation department, talks to the community, figures out what we need, figures out how we get kids from Annapolis to the college and back, or get the college to the kids. So yes, I think it's all part and parcel of the bigger picture, Eugene.
Thank you. One other issue that came to mind, and this is for the county executive. The reason why, and I was a prime mover in getting the workforce diversity policy going in the school district, was we needed to shine a light on what the gaps were in terms of employment and opportunity, and B, what the Human Relations Department was doing as a plan to address them. And it was required that they make a report every year. And I think the council needs a similar report on what the Human Relations staff is doing to get a more equitable county workforce. So that was the idea behind the policy, Mr. County Executive.
So getting the I like that, a report to the council. Yeah, I mean, we've been focused on getting it out to the public, but I think you're absolutely right that, and we could, I don't think it would take a lot to get a council member to propose that they would pass a bill saying, right, we want a report from the Office of Personnel and Diversity every year. And that would, as you say, it would shine more light on it.
Yes.
Just putting it out on the internet. Yeah.
And then the other issue had to do with the Minority and Small Business Enterprise Program. And you are correct. When you do the study, you'll find out there are gaps, which the school district found. But the biggest benefactor we found in the school district was in our construction programs, where we basically found a lot of ways to increase minority participation in those big construction projects. Don't know how many the county has, but similarly, I think that would be useful. The other thing I think that the policy outline was how hard it is to get that same kind of diversity in other areas. And the school districts had similar problems, like they do a lot of programmatic stuff. And what we found was there wasn't a whole lot of minority participation in those programs. So I would just say, I think you're on the right track there. And the real selling point was, and I did this with my buddy Conrad Wason, was the selling point, we called it, was minority and small business. It wasn't minority business. It was minority and small business. And I think that should be the emphasis in the county's efforts.
As long as the minority part doesn't get ignored, just because we
no, it won't get, and it didn't get ignored in ours, but it helped that we would have small businesses also included. That was one of Conrad's points. He made a good point about that.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that has come up that we've just started through economic development is not about contracts, but just about providing training and access to capital for minority businesses. There's a new program within economic development, and I can't remember the name of it right now. It's got a V in it, but it just started. We just announced it about a month ago, and they just do a set number each session of minority businesses who sign up, and they get training, they get a stipend, they get some money, and then it's supposed to open doors to act. But I mean, I've been in business myself, but I never got trained to be in business, and a lot of business people are like that. And so it's providing basically continuing education to those businesses. So we're kind of excited about that one. Did Joe Clapsow's hand was up? Was your hand?
Sorry. Commissioner Clapsow.
I took it down only because my questions were being answered and you were addressing them with Mr. Peterson.
Well, welcome to the commission, Mr. Clapsaddle.
It's a pleasure to see you, sir.
Yeah.
And just to chime in, it's the Inclusive Ventures program.
Inclusive Ventures, I knew that. Thank you. Inclusive Ventures. I knew there was a V in there, yeah. A couple of V's. Okay. Well, thank you for everything that all of you are doing. I know we've got a lot of work to do. And as you say, I'm as impatient as the next person. And for those who didn't make this meeting, I'm going to have to take their names and call them up and ask them where the heck they were. Oh, okay. Mark had to put his face up. Yeah. Okay.
This is Mark Apter. I just wanted to add one thing. I'm a member of the Arundel NAACP chapter, and we have a hate bias subcommittee, and it is actively involved in looking at accusations by individual citizens against the Olive Garden for hate bias against Brewsters and like that. And I think that it would be wise for whatever your new committee as well as ours to involve ourselves with what the NAACP chapter is doing in that regard.
Point well taken, Commissioner.
Yeah, you all, I mean, that's not up to me, but you all might want to have a regular report to the HRC from NAACP on the results of those things, because we don't always get them. Sometimes I do get notified about what they're hearing, but not always. And it should go through you all as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's good. Great idea, Mr. County Executive. Thank you, Mark.
The 7 positions on the Opportunity Gap Commission that are community also are designated, right, Jen?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you want to tell them how those are broken down?
I can. Yeah. I mean, we were going to save it, right? But but yeah, let me.
Okay. This is a big secret, right?
So there's a county employee, there's a county youth, there's a representative of faith-based organizations, there's a representative from the NAACP and Arundel County chapter. There is a resident with lived experience. And that's 5 of ours. No, let's see, 5, 7. I'm doing this by memory, Pam. Can you help me out?
Well, there's 2 that's appointed by the commission themselves, right? Are we counting those? 3 that when the commission gets seated, they get to appoint a further 3. And then the school system has 6, right?
Yep.
And they have things like a parent, school employee. All the diversity officers are included, but they're ex officios, right? So the county diversity officer, the police diversity officer, the college diversity, and so on. So that's that. It's put together carefully.
So we've just missed a representative from an education profit. On the school side,
right?
There's early childhood specialist, a pupil personnel worker, a school nurse, a principal from a Title I school, and a representative from their Citizens Advisory Council. All right. Well, now everybody knows what's going to be in the executive order.
Yeah. Well, they won't remember. It was really, they put a lot of thought into it, and so thank you for that. So hopefully we'll get, I want to make sure that when this is done, it's done in a very public way. So we'll let you know about that when it's coming. Mm-hmm. All right.
All right.
Well, I'm going to jump off and let you continue with your meeting.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You.
Appreciate the feedback and input.
Thank you for having us this evening.
Thank you guys.
Our pleasure. Okay, we're going to move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is commission updates and reports. And we'll start with our Human Relations Officer report, our interim Human Relations Officer, Joelle.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. I wanted to give you some updates from things we talked about last month to start with. That incident in Brooklyn Park, there was a question about, that hate bias incident in Brooklyn Park, whether there was ever any follow-up from the county. And I wanted to report that Constituent Services did reach out to the victims of that incident. In terms of, we talked about the hiring practices for police. There is some general information about about background checks and things like that that's on our website. But also I talked to police, and one of the things that they do in the hiring process is the Maryland Police Training Commission oversees all regulations for police departments in the state. And they check with it as part of the hiring process. They check with them before somebody is hired, because if somebody would have been let go from another policing agency, there would be record of it at the state level. The Serious Incident Review Board, I'm not sure whether they're going to go ahead and appoint me temporarily or if they're just going to wait for the new Human Relations Officer, but there will be representation on that group. And in terms of, Eugene, I think it was your question about the community relations position in the police department.
Yes.
They did put in for 6 new sworn positions for the budget, but the hate bias coordinator was not one. Their real need right now this year is for the crisis intervention team to assist with the mobile crisis response, given the increase in mental health and other related issues with crisis response. In terms of my administrative updates, I know the question came up in terms of what to do about legislation. So I have a couple suggestions. The first would be that we could invite Pete Barron, who's the government relations officer for County Executive Pittman. He has talked to the Commission on Disability Issues in the past about a legislative process for boards and commissions. What I know about that process is and what the Commission on Disability Issues typically would do, if there was a piece of legislation, whether it be, especially when it's state or federal, is writing a letter of support or a letter to advise the county executive about the specific piece of legislation and a specific desire of the group to either support it, et cetera, and make sure that he's aware of it and have some involvement of whether he would support the commission, supporting it as a commission, or you're always welcome to support it as an individual. Does that help, Commissioner Clapsaddle? I think you're on mute.
I do understand, but the commission needs to have a voice. So tell me what would happen. Why do we need to hear from Mr. Barron? I don't understand why we need to hear from him.
Oh, you don't need to hear from him. He just could talk to you about the legislative process in general, especially at the county level.
Because the issues that I brought up are national and statewide, and the state is making progress right now on these issues, and it's a crucial time, whether it's the school district in Arundel County or whether it's the 3 major issues going on with the General Assembly. These will lose our window of opportunity. So
what I would suggest then is crafting a letter to Mr. Pittman with your desire to support or get behind a piece of legislation as a commission.
Yeah, that's on our agenda tonight. So that's what we'll.
So the letter should go not directly to the legislators involved, but to the county executive, who then takes it from there.
Yes, he could, or he could come back to you and say, he would he's supportive of you, you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You heard from the county executive's office, so I don't have to give any updates there. No. In terms of police reports for February 2021, I feel like it's easier for me to report on a calendar month. So the police department did send me 10 reports in the month of February. All of them were police information. All 10 of them were incidents of individuals using racial and disparaging language to interact with other people, whether it be at a store because they were upset or something like that. There just were a number of those. In terms of complaints that my office received, or the Human Relations Office received for the month of February, there were 4. There was a fair housing, disability-related fair housing question. There was a landlord-tenant question. There was one person that just was looking for housing resources. And then there was an employment question. I did receive one formal complaint this week that came in via the Human Relations Fair Housing complaint form. Mr. Peterson, or Interim Chair Peterson, I'll be sending this to you to look at. I don't think that it will fall under the Anne Arundel County Fair Housing law in terms of what we or the commission could do. To just give you an overview, it is it's an individual that's renting a basement in a single family home who is requesting a reasonable accommodation under fair housing to have an emotional support animal in the quarters that she's renting, and that request has been denied. The one piece that I think we could give a look at is that there have been some financial consequences, at least this person feels like, where she was given a utility bill shortly after she brought the animal into the quarters, when rent includes utilities, and then also doing a pet addendum for the emotional support animal, etc. So I will send this to you, Mr. Peterson, or Interim Chair Peterson.
Yes.
A look at. I did talk to the person that sent this today, got a little bit more information. I can report that she filed a complaint with the Maryland Commission on Civil Rights, and it was denied. And as well with Housing and Urban Development, it was also denied there. I recommended that she reach out to Disability Rights Maryland, which is it's like a protective action agency for people with disabilities in the state of Maryland. So she is going to follow up with them to see if they could be of any support to her. She's also talked to the Fair Housing Action Center, which does fair housing, landlord-tenant disputes. And I was also going to suggest some conflict resolution, mediation.
Okay, I see Commissioner Clapsaddle. Do you have a question?
Yes.
Oh, you went mute again.
Hi, does the county or the, is this in Annapolis or was it someplace else in this? My question really is there a requirement for an emotional support animal to have certification from a medical officer, a doctor?
No.
So in other words, someone can just say, I need it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges when it comes to service animals and emotional support animals is the ADA only acknowledges service animals. And so those and the 2 service animals that the ADA acknowledges are dogs, and anyone know what the second one is? It's a personal favorite.
Rats?
Miniature horse.
Miniature.
Yes. So in the federal law, those are the two service animals that are approved under ADA. Fair housing does allow for emotional support animals, and they do not, they don't specify what those animals are or have to be. But there's a lot of gray area in terms of people, landlords, et cetera, allowing people to have, emotional support. So I think people get confused because the different federal laws have different definitions, and it's not real clear how those things get applied. This, I need to look into this because again, I just got this today, but one of the things that the landlord in this situation quoted in the complaint by the complainant included this quote, that there is a section in the Fair Housing Act that says that reasonable accommodation requirements of fair housing do not apply to owner-occupied buildings that have 4 or fewer dwelling units. And then she goes on to say, which means I'm not required to accommodate your request for an emotional support animal. I don't know that to be true. That is something that I need to look into, this idea of, you essentially renting a room in a single family home and how fair housing applies to that. Lakeisha, did you have a question?
Well, I did have a question. It's kind of segueing a little bit of what you just said. I wanted to know if the renting of the basement was actually something that could legally be done. I know, like in regards to my family home, there was a section that we couldn't make a certain area a bedroom because the egress was too high or like there wasn't a way. So I just wanted to make sure that we are, if we did get involved somehow, some way, there is a legal procedure, or there's legal documentation to say that the person renting the basement can even do so. Do we have the qualifications of who can rent and who cannot in regards to that?
So, I think that comes down to like landlord tenant law, which I'm not an expert in, especially as it comes to, most of the time, my work, even before this commission, as the ADA coordinator, I got a lot of fair housing complaints for people with disabilities that are living in, rental units, et cetera, around emotional support animals and reasonable accommodation for parking, reserved parking where they live. But I have actually, in my 4.5 years, not really come up against this single family home rent out the basement situation. So it's really something that I need to look into to understand a little bit better. So as I get more information, I'd be happy to share it with you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Sure. And I'm going to share some resources with her. In the meantime, it's a stressful situation for her. So I'd like to at least try to connect her to any resources that I can as I try to look into this a little bit more.
Any further questions of Joelle, commissioners? Okay, thank you for your report.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Interim Human Relations Officer from the Interim Human Relations Commission Chair. Thank you very much. I'd like to go to the next item, which is I was contacted by Major Bennett on the police response to the Brooklyn Park incident, and the police are still looking into it. They have a problem in that they looked at all the cameras, surveillance cameras around. They didn't really get a good take on anybody that was doing it. So they're still investigating it, but they don't have a lot of leads as to specific individuals involved in this act. Commissioner Clapsall? Okay,
Just sneezing.
that's fine. Commissioner Hatcher, did the Annapolis Human Relations Commission meet? Do you have anything to report from that?
I do not. They canceled March 1st meeting. And so we are rescheduled to do April 1st, I believe, if that falls on. Yep, April 1st is the next meeting. So I should have something to report then.
Okay. The next item is recommendations, police reforms. We had a meeting with the police chief. It was a very good meeting. She stated her, for those that weren't part of the conversation, she stated her positions in terms of a expanded police review authority. She's not against it. Her biggest issue with the LBOR is LBOR has so many entanglements with police union language that it really takes away the ability of police chiefs to run their departments. So she felt that was her biggest concern about any reform of LBOR, that be fixed. She also said that she felt that all police officers should be extended their constitutional rights like everybody else. We agreed with that. And she talked about some of her needs and her ideas that she's putting forward to increase communications with the public, to focus, as was stated earlier by the county executive, on crisis intervention, probably a lot to do with the pandemic and the rise in incidences of suicide and et cetera, and domestic violence, and to work on community policing. And that's where those 6 positions are going to go. Since that time, the former Commissioner Veloso sent an email to the chief outlining our concerns about the need for legislation to be passed in the county that would increase police accountability, and for a review board, for we didn't address the issue of body cams, but that's something that needs to be looked at so they can't be turned on and off at will. And so the chief sent me an email this morning. And again, her big issue is not usurping her ability to manage her department. So I sent her an email back and I said that that was not our intention, that we still would want to pursue legislation on accountability as we see that as our right. We want to continue to have dialogue. We will support her emphasis on the 3 items that she talked about, which is increased communications, crisis intervention, and community policing. And we would even help her in terms of talking to the council about budgetary support. And I said, ended the email with, let's continue the conversation. I will send both emails to all commissioners, and I would hope that we would have a rather robust discussion in April about what to do next in terms of moving forward with the issue of accountability measures. One I cited in the email to the chief was that I had a firm belief that, and I think we have also expressed that there is no reasonable policy that would allow for chokeholds. Thank God the police department does not teach it, but there should be consequences beyond simply the police chief having the ability to suspend or expel a police officer. There should be legal ramifications for such, as I put it, atrocities. So I will send those communications to you. We want to keep the door open to dialogue. I felt it was important, and Roberto and I both talked about this, that we not blindside the chief. She now knows where we are and what our positions are starting to form to be, and we'll continue the dialogue. My sincere feeling is we want to give the chief the latitude to be successful, and we need to get behind efforts that will promote that kind of success, at the same time advocating for positions that we believe are necessary to increase accountability. Any questions from any of the commissioners? Okay, I'll be sending those emails either tonight or tomorrow. Okay, let's move to consideration of House of Delegates Senate LGBTQ plus legislation and WISE huddle request for support of ACCPS policy regulation supporting LGBTQ rights. I would entertain a motion at this point in time, unless there's a need for further discussion on these measures, and certainly we can have that discussion. It might be good for the public to talk about what the legislation at the state is aiming to do, and what the policies that the school district would help reinforce. So maybe we should start with that. Any commissioners want to help us explain why we would entertain a motion to be in favor of these things? Commissioner Clapsaddle. You're on mute.
Hi.
You're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Yes, we can.
I will put on my, and thank you very much, Gene, for allowing me to have a few moments for this. I'd like to simplify this, and I thank you for your suggestion. In terms of what's happening with the House of Delegates, the General Assembly, there are really two major legislative initiatives. The first one is was sponsored by Delegate Chi for the establishment of a statewide LGBTQ plus commission. And this would be of value to the entire state in terms of providing an umbrella for information about issues that are important to this community and how they integrate into the community as a whole. And right now what we have is we have communities, we have Annapolis Pride Plus, we have this one, that one in Baltimore, but we don't have a central clearinghouse. So that's why I think it's important for us to support that. The second one has to do with really what is kind of just a codification of human rights. And it was established at the federal government with the Equity Act, and is being considered is supported by the Annapolis Human Relations Commission. And this is nothing more than guaranteeing, health, education, all kinds of human rights for the LGBT plus community. And one of the big issues that's included in this is the transgender community. So that's why I think these are important. And I would like to see us as a Human Rights Commission support them. In terms of the second one, I think that's fairly simple. The second one is a little, Gene, and I think you are probably more experienced in Anne Arundel County than I am with regard to the Board of Education. But I have read the WISE LGBTQ plus recommendations for consideration, and they're now being considered by a special policy committee of the Board of Education. And basically what they have now is the board really, what they have now is nothing more than a kind of a statement of policy. but there's no formal policies and regulations. In other words, they're simply, and so what we're trying to do, and I'd love to hear what Camille might have to say about this, because she is a student in our system. But I think it's important that it be formalized. And I think there are like 5 major areas that I think should be improved upon, because this is a comprehensive policy. One, I think that student organizations and resources need to be provided for with resources. And that has to do with gay straight alliances. And then I think the policies with regard to the LGBTQ plus community should be extending the policy to cover all of the school-related activities. And this includes the teachers, the staff, the students, the parents, and the volunteers. I think there needs to be a clear view of transgender guidelines in the policy, because this is a whole area now. And I think respecting students' choice of names, dress code, freedom of expression, staff protocols, privacy of students, and also respecting students in terms of in terms of the staff and the educators. I think the training and professional development issues need to be increased and supported. So those are the main things, but I would strongly urge us to support the WISE initiatives. And I would actually think that it might be a good idea, Jean, if we invited the chair of the policy commission to meet with us, because this will not be decided in the next month.
Right. You're talking about the school district.
We have time with this
policy chair. You're talking about the school district policy chair.
Well, yeah, these are people that I think we need to hear from, because right now what we're doing is I have read and I have been participating in Zoom meetings with WISE just to listen to them and to hear what they have to say. And so far, I don't have any issue with it. But I think it would be wise for us, before we send this letter of support, if we decide to do such a thing, that we hear from, I think, actually 3 people. One is, I think, Melissa Ellis, who is the Board of Education. 2, I think we should hear from Dr. Joanna Tobin, who is the chair of the policy committee. And 3, I think it would be a great idea to hear from the students. Drake Smith sits on the Board of Education. He's the student representative. I'd love for Camille to be a part of that, because I think it's important for her to hear what they have to say and to guide us through this. And that's really right. I mean, we definitely, what we're being told, which is not true, and that's what I want us to address, is we're being told that they have all of this covered, that there's nothing new here. But that is really not the case. There's too much leeway. There's not so that people don't know where the resources are. There's no support for resources, and it causes real problems within the school district.
Okay, so what you're proposing, as I hear it, is that in the April meeting that we invite the WISE group to make a presentation and also hear from the 3 school board members and our student member that in terms of their support, opposition, feelings on this policy and regulation change. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes, I think that, I know that sounds like a lot, and it's a new area for our commission, but I think it's an area that we should be addressing as a human rights relations commission.
Anybody against calendaring these 2 groups, hopefully in April?
Camille had her hand up.
Oh, Camille, I'm sorry. Yeah, Camille?
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm 100% in support of this, but I would just like to add that I think we should be hearing from students who are actually part of the LGBTQ plus community within Arundel County. I know Drake and myself personally aren't a part of that community, and we'd hate to speak on behalf of that community and not be able to give those students the full chance to speak their truth. So I would urge us that if we're going to do this, that I know I have friends and I have people who we can talk to that have lived, you know, the trans life within in Arundel County, and have lived other stories within our county.
Okay, we can add that. That'll be a full packed agenda. We'll either have all three in April, or we'll, when do you think the school board would actually take this up for a vote? Anybody have any idea?
It's hard to tell, Gene. I think we only have until to express our support, if we're going to do that. Mm-hmm. I think we only have until the end of April. Because
the end of April, okay.
I think the school board will take it up. We meaning I, as I interpret what's going on,
yes,
like to see this instituted before the start of next school year.
Okay, so
education would take it up until May or June.
Right. So then it's important to have the three groups in April. And on the legislation before the House of Delegates and the Senate, that's a shorter fuse, right?
Right, and that would be great if we could draft a letter. If that's, I would move that we support these two issues, and that we draft a letter to the
county executive. Right? Is that the way it goes?
Yes, that would be my recommendation.
Okay, so we'll draft a letter, and I'll work on the letter. I'll work with Joe on the letter, and then I'll Commissioner Clapsaddle, and then we'll send it out to everybody, and we can send it to the county executive. I'd like to have someone make a motion to draft a letter in support of these two pieces of legislation that would go to the county executive, asking for us to be able to put the letter forward from the Human Relations Commission of Anne Arundel County. Is there a second? Is there a
Chairman Peterson, I have a question before we move forward. Does the commission need to vote on this before we go to the next phase of drafting letters?
Yes, that's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm asking for someone to make the motion.
I have so moved.
Okay, Commissioner Clapsaddle so moved that we go ahead and draft a letter and get it to the county executive shortly. Is there a second? Okay, don't have a second, so I guess the motion dies for lack of a second. Is that correct?
Sadly, I think you're right.
Okay. All right, so we won't be taking a position on that, or asking to take a position with the state on that. Okay, I'd like to ask for a motion to have the three groups calendared for our April meeting that Commissioner Clapsaddle outlined. Is there a motion to do that?
I motion.
Okay, so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you, Khalid. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. I skipped an item. I must apologize. County Council update, so we'll go to that. Commissioner Clapsaddle, do you have any County Council updates? Or you?
No updates.
Okay, and you have your hand raised for something else? Okay. I talked to Commissioner Dodoni, and she asked me to inform the commission that the school board voted the other day at their meeting to remove the names George Fox from George Fox Middle School and seek a new name. And I guess for commissioners that aren't familiar with the history of Anne Arundel County, I should point out why they're doing this. George Fox was a longtime superintendent in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. All accounts are he did a good job, but back in the 1930s, Principal Mills of the Mills Parole School sued the school district for the disparity in pay between African American teachers and white teachers. And in the court proceedings, Fox, when asked about the case, responded that there wasn't a Black teacher that was worth half of what any of his white teachers were. So being an avowed, I guess I would say segregationist, I think the school board is doing the right thing in removing his name from the building. There will be a process that the school district enters into where they involve the community, the school, and they come up with a new name. But I thought I would bring that to you for your attention and understanding. New business, we have none. Okay. Any announcements from any of the commissioners? Okay, I'm not seeing any announcements.
Got my hand.
Yes,
Gene,
Commissioner Clapsaddle, sorry.
should we send a formal letter thanking thanking Roberto Veloso for his service to the commission?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
we could. I think he's, you know, I mean, you all have been on the commission longer than I have, but I think that he did an excellent job.
Okay.
So I would make a motion.
It's been moved that we send a letter of thanks and recognition to former commission chair Roberto and Commissioner Roberto Veloso. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, that was seconded by there were two people that seconded at the same time. I will. Ms. Hatcher seconded it.
Yes.
And I'd ask for all in favor.
Aye.
Say aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. The letter will be drafted, sent out, and you'll get a copy of it. Any other announcements?
I'll just give you a quick update on the PSA
Yes.
announcement. So I was able to meet 2 weeks ago with the script writer who gave me a little foundation as to how to proceed. So I've started working on kind of the structure of it, of which once I have something a little more hardcore, I will be passing forward to Commissioner Clapsaddle and you, Chair Peterson, to kind of review before we go on to the next phase.
Fine, that's progress, that's great. The only other item that we have left is our next monthly virtual meeting will be on Thursday. I believe it says April 18th, but I think it's April 12th. Is that correct? I think it is. But that will be our next virtual meeting.
April 12th
April 12th, yes.
is a Monday.
Oh, it's a Monday? So it must be.
April 15th is a Thursday.
Okay. I'll make sure that I send out the notice on the exact date. Okay.
I think it should be the 15th.
Yeah, I think it's the 15th. Okay. Then we'll, the next monthly virtual meeting will be April 15th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Okay, if there are no other items that anybody wants to bring up, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
I motion.
Okay, Commissioner Hatcher has motion that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Clapsaddle. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Great. Okay, this concludes the monthly meeting, virtual meeting of the Human Relations Commission. I'll make sure next time that we have to write indicia so that people could get on in a timely fashion. Apologize for that snafu, and look forward to continuing to do the work that we do so that we can join in making Anne Arundel County the best place for all. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.